Hello and welcome everybody once again to the Tattoo Sisterhood Revolution interview series. I'm your host, Shelly Dax, and our guest speaker today is personal development coach Kat Trimarco, here to give you a different perspective on manifesting your soul-fueled tattoo career. But before we start our chat with Kat, for those who are new on the interview series today, in this free event, I'm providing a comfortable space to hear about what it takes to create a tattoo career and life as an artist for people who are curious or may have already started on this path and they want to up level. I, along with this unique panel of speakers, hope to give support and ideas on following your intuition, magnifying your talent, and becoming the most creative version of you that you can be. And just a reminder, each morning we'll send you an email with a link to the interviews of the day. So watch out for those and check your promo or junk folder if something seems to be missing. Now, let me tell you a little bit about our accomplished guest. Excuse me. Go back one more time. Now, let me tell you a little bit about our accomplished guest today. Kat Trimarco is an evolutionary thought leader, spiritual quantum teacher, and life coach, published author, and speaker. She teaches people to understand and work with universal laws, their thoughts, emotions, and energies to experience deep internal fulfillment, as well as to manifest and co-create a beautiful life. Kat has a certificate in spiritual psychology from the University of Santa Monica. She's a certified coach and the author of Self-Approved, A Guide to Accepting, Loving, and Expressing the Person You Truly Are. Her work has been featured in major publications, including Good Morning La La Land, LA Talk Radio, Thrive, Authority Magazine, and Best Self Magazine. And she's also appeared as a keynote speaker at the world-renowned Wanderlust festivals. Welcome, Kat. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you so much for having me, Shelly, and thank you so much for putting this whole event on. It sounds wonderful, and I can't wait to hear the other interviews as well.
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you. Yeah, it's been really incredible talking to so many awesome people. So I was attracted to you and your website, and just I noticed that you had tattoos and that you're a personal development coach and you kind of come at things from a different perspective. And I would love to hear a little bit more about how you got started in that field and what kind of artistry you're involved in.
Yeah, and I feel it's important to share. Obviously, I'm not a tattoo artist, but I have built multiple successful businesses and careers in the arts. And it started with, I was a hairstylist for 13 years. And what got me into what I do now, I mean, I always say it wasn't a conscious choice. It was an awakening to that which my soul was calling me forth into. And it started from actually going through like some really challenging experiences in my life. My partner, who was a very successful tattoo artist, was struggling with prescription drug addiction. And I mean, I was partying and drinking a ton as well. And I mean, all of that kind of came to a head, and I left the relationship, and not long after he passed away. And that started a deep inner inquiry within me of, what is this existence really about? Like, who are we? What are we doing here? If life is so fragile and it can be here in one moment and then gone in another moment, like what am I going to create with my own life? Like, who do I really want to be? What do I want the expression of myself to be?
Great
And
questions.
Here's the cool thing about, I mean, life, right, in the universe is we receive the answers to that which we ask. And we don't need to wait for trauma, tragedy, for things going astray to ask these higher level questions. Although in my experience, most people just, if there's nothing to trigger it, they don't. But that's why this conversation, I feel, is so powerful, because anyone can start to ask themselves these questions of like, what really is the highest expression of me and of self? And so that, I mean, that's sent off like firecrackers of internal awakenings, of receiving messages from my own soul, starting to really understand and channel through, yeah, like teachings and guidance around what's really going on behind the scenes of what we can see physically. And I just kept answering my soul. Like I just kept following the guidance, the daily guidance that I would receive to show up on social media and share the experiences that I was going through and share these insights and these downloads and these teachings that were streaming through me.
Hmm.
And I kind of just started calling myself a coach because I wanted to help people. I want people were attracted to what I was sharing and what I
Hmm.
was uncovering.
Yeah.
And from there, I've just kind of taken it step by step in building a business from that place and turning my work and my teachings into programs and working with people one on one and everything else.
Yeah, that's incredible. I will be honest that it's not a conversation that you hear a ton in tattoo shops, but like over the years. But now I'm starting to notice more and more and more people deciding that tattooing is not one size fits all, and I can be me in this process. I don't have to cave to, some of the bullying and intimidation and things like that. And so I guess partly my message also is to get out there and tell people, especially women, and that's women with an X, um, that we can actually raise the consciousness of this industry and try for more connection to our soul and have these kinds of conversations.
Yeah. I mean, I believe that the truest success is alignment with our own creativity and is bringing forth that expression. And even in my journey as a hairstylist, right? It's like when we're connected within ourselves and we're connected to our passion, to our truth, the people who are aligned with that will always be attracted to us. And I think in any arts industry, it's not ever about becoming the best in accordance to what anyone else is doing, or even in really paying much attention to what anyone else is doing unless it inspires you. It's knowing that if you're inspired to be something, to do something, to create something, to express something in an outward fashion, like there's people who will love it, and the right clients will be attracted to you. The right people will always find you. And I mean, even if you want to go bigger and have your stuff like in publications, it's like even that's something you can attract in. But it's, I think we can often get stuck in, yeah, and kind of a dynamic of thinking like we need to go out into the world and present something a certain way, present ourselves a certain way, present our art a certain
Hmm.
way. And it's just like that's just such an old model, right? It's like no, the best shit comes from your heart. The best stuff comes from like your passion, your enthusiasm, your excitement. And in my experience, the other dynamics, I mean, if there's any dynamics of bullying or feeling like you're trying to keep up with competition or anything like that, it's like that dissolves when we're connected to our own truth and when we're
Hmm.
connected to our own passion and we're really being that and expressing that. And so I would say, like, for anyone, it's like that's the place to focus on. It's like focus on your own passion of your own art and fuck all the other stuff. And that stuff, it's like what we don't put our attention on can't survive. Like it's like things are only present in our reality from our focus to them. So it's like we can focus on trying to solve a problem, or we can focus on like the expression of our own spirit
Oh,
and
that's so good.
through art, right? And know that like, man, if you're called to express that, and no matter how unique or different it is, or even no matter how much you think it's the same as to what someone else is
Right.
doing, like your people will always be attracted to it because there's the art in and of itself becomes magnetic. So
Yeah. Yeah,
that's what
that
I would say
reminds
about
me
that.
of I love that. That reminds me of a quote. Do you know who Elizabeth Gilbert is, the author of Eat, Pray, Love?
I Yeah, I've read her book.
Yeah, she has an amazing book. I think it's called Big Magic. It's called Big Magic. And she has a quote in there. When people, I'm not going to get it completely right, but it's something like when people don't like your art, or they don't like what you've created, or they attack you even with like savage vitriol, just smile politely and, continue making the art that you're making, and just tell them to go make their own fucking art. It's like one
Yeah.
of my favorite quotes. And what you
Yeah.
just said totally reminds me of that. It's like, oh, I would love for more of my students to embrace that idea too, you know?
Yeah. I mean, there's always gonna be that, right? And it's true that oftentimes the more we shine. I remember this when I decided to get sober, right? And it was like a lot of people around me were questioning me, and it was like I was coming into my own truth. I was coming into my own light, like my own soul.
Mhm.
And what happens when we do that, whether it's an internal expression or through our art, through our like through tattoo art or writing art, any kind of art. I mean, for people who are not living in their highest fullest expression, it can sometimes be a mirror that shows them where they're not living in their passion and their joy. And I feel it's important that it's okay if people get triggered, because there's opportunity in a trigger. um yeah, but when we see it that way, that was something I had to reconcile within myself as I was experiencing that in the journey of getting sober.
Mhm.
um it's recognizing that, like recognizing that you shining shows a light potentially for someone else who is not in their truth. And it's an opportunity for them. And if we don't try and fight them, we don't try and battle it, but rather just trust that they can go through their own process, the whole situation becomes opportunity in my experience.
I love that. So turning adversity into opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
good. Well, kind of on that note, one of the things that I know a lot of people have experienced trying to get into the tattoo industry is the perception that it's kind of a harsh environment, or that it's male dominated, and it is, I mean, in a lot of areas. Um, and that they almost have to put up with like belittling, almost in sort of like a militaristic style of being broken down before you're allowed to be, handed the keys to the kingdom or something like that. And what would you say to people that are like facing that kind of thing?
Nothing is true unless we make it true. And this might be a little bit next level if someone's maybe new to personal development or understanding, but the truth is that we create our reality. And so that dynamic can only be true if we believe it's true. So again, it's like, well, you can put your attention and focus on that and thinking like there's something that I need to overcome to attain something or to be something. And if that's the focus, then that's the dynamic that you'll create. I would go for the opposite way and focus on your art, focus on your passion, focus on what you're creating. That stuff dissolves if you're not paying attention to it. It really does. I mean, some of the things I've run into people who said like there's competition in the industry I'm in, and I'm like, "What?" Like I have people reaching out to me to interview me all the time, and like been on like I've spoken on major stages, and it it was all just because I had a desire in my heart and belief that I had something important to share that will serve people, and that love and that passion opens doorways.
Mm.
So if that's a dynamic that someone's experiencing, I would turn the other cheek. What do you want? What do you want your experience within the industry to be? Because
Mhm.
the truth is like we're the center of our own universe. We're creating it all. And as we change our thoughts, as we change our beliefs, as we change what we're perceiving through our own lens, our external world changes. So
Mm.
it's in my eyes, it's not about going out and trying to change the tattoo industry or any industry for that matter. It's about embodying that which you want to experience. And because the world, we're creating everything we see, as you change what you're embodying, what you believe, what your perceptual filters are, the outside world will change. And then that dynamic might be going on in some people's reality, in some people's experience, but you're just not even going to see it. You're not even going to be aware of it because
Hmm.
you're in a different reality.
Yeah.
So, yeah, nothing has to be real unless we make it real. And any dynamic that we're ever living in that doesn't feel good, we have the power to shift it and change it and rearrange it through our perceptual filters, which is like the ultimate power of being a creator of any sort. Um, yeah, to create it the way we want it to be, to experience life the way we want it to be in all areas.
Yeah. Well, that's really interesting. I've talked to a lot of different people, and there are, of course, a lot of people who tell me that they've experienced that kind of bullying and that, misogyny and those kinds of things. But mostly what I'm hearing is I wouldn't put up with it. I value myself more than to allow that to happen. I will scramble and find some way to make this career work, regardless of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's been
I
good to
mean,
hear more and more people saying similar to what you're saying. In fact, I've even talked to a few people who say, "Oh, I didn't even really notice that that was going on because I started my own studio and I just decided to do my own thing." Just like
yeah,
what you're saying. That's interesting. Um,
precisely.
yeah. Although, I mean, so some people are still a little bit stuck in that. So what would be an idea for like to help them network and make connections with artists that or people in general, even coaches or something that could help them get over that.
Well, it's first recognizing that it's not about changing the external circumstance. It's always about changing our perception of it. It's always about changing. It would be asking, like, what is happening within me that's even attracting this situation to me, and looking at the root cause of it and shifting at the root cause, which is always within our own consciousness. It's always within our own energy, within our own thoughts and within our own beliefs. Um so I would encourage that person to first like look at like what false perceptions am I buying into and deciding are real just because they've been an experience that I've had, right? Because
Mhm.
just because we've experienced something once doesn't mean it maintains as our reality unless we maintain focus to it. And then from there, asking, well, what do I want my experience to be? What do I want my like what would feel good to me? What's the experience I desire to have within the industry, within my work? And then focus on that, and focus on, I mean, all creation starts with feeling, right? So this might be a little advanced if someone's like, I don't, what the fuck is this woman talking about?
Yeah.
But
That's okay.
all creation starts with feeling, right? It's like every beautiful piece of artwork, every beautiful tattoo starts as an inspiration. It starts as an idea. It starts as, right? It's like your
Mhm.
client comes in, they're describing, like they've got passion about it, they've got ideas about it, and you co-create and collaborate. And it's like birthed from that is this visual piece of art, but it starts with a feeling. And all of creation is like that. So if someone's stuck in that dynamic, you would want to ask yourself, like, well, what is the experience that I do want to have? What is the feeling experience that I do want to have? Well, I want to be in an environment where people love me, where there's a mutual love, a mutual respect, a mutual valuing of each other's uh, full essence as artists and as the individual, as people. I want to be somewhere that I feel I can be in the full creativity and the full expression of my art, and where that's valued and people are really going to respect that and appreciate that. And what you
Mhm.
want to do is actually tune into what that feels like, right? What that feels like. Well, it feels like when I tune into it, it's like, wow, it feels like joy. It feels like inspiration. It
Yeah.
feels like, yeah, it feels like valuing myself and being valued. And that's really what we want to tune into is the experience that you do want to have, and then embodying those feelings. And the way, I mean, I get advanced in this when I teach I have academies and different programs where I teach this, but um it's like, if we go in advance to that, it's like the material world, the physical reality morphs in accordance to the feelings that we hold, and to the energy that's within us. It's actual like physics. It's law based. It's energy is very predictable, and so that's how you change that dynamic. And that the
Hmm.
truth is that's how you change any dynamic is going like, okay, cool, what do I want? How do I want to feel? Imagining it, embodying it, feeling it, and then literally watch as external experiences shift and change. Just like
Hmm.
you'd mentioned, like some people don't ever experience that. It's like external reality is always indicative of something that's going on within us, in our own mind, in our own how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about life, how we feel. And the cool thing is all of that is within our power to change, and that's how we really become masters of our own life and masters of our own experience.
Yeah.
um
So how would people confront and destruct the old ways?
Well, again, I'm more of a proactive, forward-looking person, so I
Hmm.
don't think it's always necessary to deconstruct, but
Deconstruct.
it's
That's what I meant to say.
yeah, so it's like no, I meant like yeah, so here's the thing is rather than like going in and going like, "Oh, I gotta like pull this apart and fix it or see what's all going on behind the curtains," you want to take a stance of like the neutral observer. So it's kind of like a place within your own consciousness of kind of zooming back and like inside of yourself and going, what within me is creating this, like this external dynamic, right? Like this external situation, this external experience, where was I feeling that inside of myself before the situation even created itself, before I was
Mm-hmm.
having this physical
Yeah.
experience? And it's through awareness. I mean, and you might uncover like constructs of self, like limiting ideas about reality or about self or about, I mean, it could be something as simple as, oh, I just had a belief that this was the way the tattoo industry operates. It might be, fuck, I'm holding some like victim energy in my field that could have been something that from something you experienced like 20 years ago, and it
Mm-hmm.
just was a energy or a vibration or a perception of self that gets kind of locked into place and with like subconsciously without even knowing it, and then you just kind of recreate from that energy over and over again. But I mean, this is the work I do with people because it's hard to see our own patterns very often, right? Like
Yeah.
we're the one in it. So it's like I don't know what created this because I can't see outside of my own mind, right? But it is like if you're going to try and do the work on your own, it is like that neutral observation of, okay, like now that I know that I'm the creator, that this is a reflection of something going on in me, like what are the beliefs, what are the feelings that are happening inside of me that match this situation that I'm seeing externally?
Well,
And then it's like,
I was just going to say, I can give you an example and then maybe you can say how you would handle it. Um,
totally, let's do it.
yeah. So about 3 or 4 years ago, I experienced cyberbullying, and loads of people came onto my social media and said really awful things. I mean, really awful things. Um, and it was kind of just completely out of the blue. And when it ended up being, over like 300 really mean comments, and it was generally about the fact that I own a tattoo school, and it was sort of old schooler tattoo people, mostly men, 95% men, that thought that was a really bad idea and doesn't follow the old ways, and all of that. So my way of handling it was to not even respond to any of those people, and then
Mhm.
make kind of a funny video about it and post it on YouTube instead.
Yeah.
But and then it just kind of it's dissipated over the years, and I haven't really experienced much of that anymore. So the truth is that it is out there. There are those opinions out there. um how would you recommend, and this happens to people, like newcomers and people who've apprenticed and stuff, they understand, a lot of them have gone through that. How would you recommend that they handle stuff like that?
Such a good question. So the way that I use this and have always used it when I'm experiencing like criticism or judgment, any kind of ridicule, basically anything that doesn't feel any kind of feedback that doesn't feel good, I go into what is the clarity here? I'm going to give you like a really tangible example, and you'll see the mirror of exactly what you experienced there with the your tattoo school and starting that. I had an experience where there was this period in my life where so many people were judging me, and the specific judgments were literally like, you're too spiritual. Like the things you say are like, you're too spiritual. Literally, like friends, my partner at the time, like you're too spiritual. Like it's too out there. What you're saying is too. And it was criticism and judgment, and it was repetitively from multiple people. So it got my attention naturally, just like I assume it did for you
Yes.
when these people were attacking you online. And I went, cool. I know that this has to be here to show me something inside of myself. The fucking truth is I am spiritual. Like my soul came to earth to help awaken humanity to like who we really are and to navigate our human experience from this perspective. I am spiritual, but I was denying that aspect of myself.
Mhm.
I was feeling like I'm too out there. What I talk about is too spiritual. It's too crazy. People don't understand it. So that was being mirrored to me. And so when those things get our attention, that's a perfect it. It's like you go into that neutral observation of like, okay, this is happening. And what is it showing me within me? Well, for you, it's like, well, fuck, that's an opportunity to own the shit out of who you are. Yeah,
Yeah.
I am
Yeah.
doing things differently. Yeah, I am creating a school from my heart, from my soul that feels good to me. And it might be different than anything anyone else has ever done before, but it's like, whoa, what's the opposite of this? The opposite of this is me taking full ownership of like who I am, my brilliance, what I'm really here to share and give and teach to the world, right?
Mm.
And
You're
when
inspiring me right now.
yeah, but it's for real. And so when anything comes into our experience like that, and we're like, fuck, and it hurts, man. It feels
Mhm.
gross. It's like
Yes, it
we're
feels
human
gross.
beings. It
Yeah.
feels like an attack on our very essence, right?
Mhm.
And but when we don't let it and we go, hey, what's here for me? What is the opportunity that is here for me? And the truth is this is the same thing I did like when my ex-partner passed away. It was like, this can destroy me, or I can go, what is here for me? Well, this is an opportunity to truly own my brilliance, to know who I am, to be on purpose with my life, to step into my work in a greater capacity than I've ever allowed myself to. And so all of that, like bullying, like any of that, it's like criticism, we get to use it to hone in on even more and claim even more what we're here to be and what really is aligned for us.
Mm.
And sometimes I really believe that sometimes we attract those situations specifically for that, like
Mhm.
specifically to go, okay, like what is my ultimate truth? Like who am I really? And thank you, person. Thank you, 300 plus people, for the criticisms, for helping me go into my own heart and
Yeah.
soul and clarify even more who I really am
Yes.
and what I really am here to gift the world with through my expression. And
Yeah, that's
I think
so interesting. I love that.
it's a fucking blessing. I would rather attract criticism once in a while to hone in on what my truth
Uh-huh.
is than to just be blending in with the fucking peanut gallery
For
because
sure.
it's safer.
Well,
So,
that actually
yeah.
what you're saying is so true for me personally because it did utterly inspire me to, just say, sorry if you don't understand what I'm doing, you're not going to be the one that I'm targeting. You're not going to be my
Yeah.
ideal person to work with anyway. And it actually did motivate me to go on and write a tattoo textbook, even though that's also been criticized and, whatever, especially by people who have absolutely no idea what I'm even doing, right? They criticize it or they give me a bad review on Amazon without even knowing or reading it. And it's like, no, you don't even understand. I am encouraging people to be safe and to learn and be educated, And so, yeah, it definitely motivated me to turn around. You're right.
Well, I mean, and the truth is every every evolutionary leader in any industry has been criticized. Really, if you look back in history, like who hasn't been criticized
Hmm.
that created evolutionary steps forward for humanity? Because it's always the new is always different than what people have experienced in the past. And it takes courageous leaders to, in any industry, including the tattoo industry, to follow their own inspiration
Mm.
and to stick with that. And yeah, we're fucking. I mean, I remember getting my neck tattooed and people telling me like you're gonna be unemployable, and I was like,
Right.
I will never be employed by someone that does not allow me the full expression of that which I am, which
I
is
love it.
I feel more like me having tattoos all over my body. Like that feels like this feels like the expression of my soul. So yeah, we're fuck, be a leader, be criticized, and
Hmm.
use it to inspire people, like use it to attract people who are absolutely in love with what you do.
Or yeah, or they're in line with it. Also, do you know who Wayne Dyer is?
Of course.
Oh, okay, of course, the father of motivation. He said something so long ago that has stuck with me forever and through all of these kind of trials and tribulations along the way, and that is, your reputation is in the hands of others, but your character is in your own hands.
Mm,
Isn't that
beautiful.
beautiful? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I know myself, I'm creating my own reality, and people don't have to understand it. They can love
Yeah.
me or hate me. It's okay. So
Yeah.
yeah, talk a little bit more about people creating their own reality and becoming magnetic to opportunities in their life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it starts with like being connected to your own self and being connected to your own passion and your own excitement and your joy. And that's really what it all is about. I mean, if we're going to translate this into artistry, it's like when you're in love with what you're creating, the people who come to you will be in love with what you're creating.
Hmm.
And you can, if you believe that what you're creating is absolutely amazing, like you will attract opportunities that reflect that like what you're creating is absolutely amazing.
Hmm.
And so when we're creating our realities in any capacity, it's less about like going out into the world and trying to make things happen, trying to make people see us, or trying to, it's like it's when we're embodied in that essence, in that passion, those things will come to us, those opportunities will come to us, those um yeah, like doors
Yeah.
open for us from, like from that space, from that place. And so my encouragement is like fall in love with yourself, like fall in love with your delight for what you're doing, for what you're creating, for yeah, the beautiful art that you're making. Like that is fucking incredible. Like I mean, if I'm even to look at my own body, my tattoos, it's like, it's like blank skin, and then a piece of a from nothing something is created. From an
Hmm.
idea, a piece of artwork is created. Like fall in love with that process. Fall in love with that, with all of that, and people will be magnetized to you.
Yeah. Actually, I've talked to a lot of speakers who are describing that the client experience is so much more important even than the art that they chose. It's like what
Mhm.
they're going through, why they did it, why they choose to work with you. And they've talked a lot about making sure you create the client experience to be something wonderful. So of course they want to come back to you.
Totally. When I was a hairstylist, like, that was my experience. I'm like, I don't know if I was the best hairstylist, but in my mind I was. But I love people. Like, I love people and I love making people feel good. And I
Hmm.
love, like, yeah, it was like, and I mean, it was funny when I was starting in the industry, I would get in trouble from my bosses, not in trouble, but I would get spoken to a lot because I would take a really long time. Like, Kat, your haircuts are taking like double the time they
Mm.
should. And I was like, but I'm in love with, like, there's so much love and care and detail. Like, I'm not just gonna whip through a haircut to get it done. It's the whole experience. And so from like a facilitator perspective, right? Or from an artist perspective, it's almost like you don't have to over focus on, it's not even about overly focusing on the person or worrying about their experience. It's about when we genuinely like feel love and we genuinely care and we genuinely like desire to uplift people and to, yeah, to love people and to care about people, it is
Hmm.
like everything else is just a natural byproduct from that, in my
Yeah.
experience.
Wow. So focusing really on making the experience lovely and yourself feeling joy and excited about what you're creating. I mean, what you're saying is kind of how I've, done my shop for years. I've been tattooing for over 14 years. And one of the things that was so important to me was making it a cozy and comfortable space that people aren't afraid to come into, right?
Yeah,
And I've gotten great feedback about that from so many people. I love your place. It's so colorful. It's so, so comfortable.
yeah,
And that is wonderful to feel that connection and to feel, well, of course, for me, I absolutely love tattooing. I love it
yeah.
so much. And it's such an awesome way for me to meet people and connect with people. That's what has kept me going through all of the ups and downs of the tattoo career for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the heartbeat of it all.
Hmm. So, how do you think that, let's say, beginner tattoo artists, either they've just got started or maybe they're in it for a couple of years, can shift into receiving more abundance for what they're doing, more artwork? Because a lot of people, it's always a conversation of like, oh, how much should I charge? I don't know. What am I worth? Blah, blah, blah. You know.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, here's how I've always done it is I just embody who I'm becoming before I actually am it. And that's a big piece of any creation. It's like, be what kind of tattoo artist do you want to be? Like when I started out doing hair, I knew that I wanted to work at like the highest end salons that there were. Like that's what my heart desired. That's what excited me. So I wasn't going into great clips. I was going into I literally like forced the like this like high end salon in the mall to hire me at the time. It was like I was 16 and going to hair school in like it taking it in high school, and they were like, "You're too young. Like, you can't start doing hair yet." I was like, "Receptionist? Like anything, hire me."
Right.
And and I did. I got hired. I worked there for years. And but it's like, what do you want? Like that's really what it's about. It's like, what do you want? Like I knew I wanted to be a high end stylist that like my prices were higher, but the experience was more. Like that was what I wanted. That was what I desired. So I started charging like top end industry prices pretty quick, like pretty much when I was walking into the industry. But I had a belief that that's who I was. Like so there was
Mm,
no
yeah.
duplicity in my own energy, right? There was
Hmm.
no contradiction. There was no like, "Oh, but I'm not that skilled yet." Like in my mind, I'm like, "I'm the shit. Like my work is the shit and you're going to have a lovely experience here with me." And I truly believe that, and that was truly people's experience with
Hmm.
me. And so I was charging like the almost, I mean, a little bit less than like the senior stylist, but I was still charging like high end rates right out of the gate.
Hmm.
So I say, fuck all the rules, make up your own rules. What feels good to you? What kind of artist do you want to be? what kind of, yeah, like what kind of artist do you want to be, and decide that and make sure it feels aligned for you.
Hmm.
And you can always up it over time, like as you get more skilled. I did that as a stylist as well, and I do that as a coach now as well. It's like over time, you can increase it in accordance. But like, I don't think there's a reason to ever like start something really low. And I don't know, that's just my viewpoint. It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
you know who you're becoming, be that person now, embody being that person now, show up as that person now, and the world will catch up. Like the
Yeah.
world, like people will catch up. People will catch up to who you know yourself to be. And that's how we're in control of it all.
Yes, I love that. Great. And people being abundant in this field. I mean, sure, there's a lot of people who think, oh, oh, artists don't make very much money or whatever, but there's a ton of artists that I'm talking to that are making great money, including some of my students who have just barely gotten out of school, within the first year or two, they're earning good money and they're feeling really, really happy about what they're producing. And so it's available. I think it's just wrapping your mindset around that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the two ever need to be tied together. It's like decide that you get to be abundant, and decide that you get to grow your career at the same time. And when we fall into like rules,
So
like,
this starving artist doesn't have to be a thing.
oh my god, I don't even know what that is. Like, like I remember like when I was in elementary school, I was like so excited to become a hairstylist. I was like, you couldn't stop me from that. That was the joy of my heart. And I just never bought into anything like that. You couldn't have even convinced me of something like that. I'm like, how could something that's so exciting on my heart be something not good, like, or
Hmm.
that would somehow diminish my life in some aspect? Like, that's all human made constructs, and they're just fucking stupid, and we don't need to buy into any of it. Like, why would we ever believe that rubbish? And that goes for anything. If someone's ever telling us anything in our life that doesn't feel good, that doesn't align with who we know we are in our heart, and what we feel our trajectory to be, even if we can't see it in the physical human experience yet, like, we just say kindly thank you for your limited perception and perspective, and I'm creating something different. And
Hmm.
that's how we do it.
Oh my gosh.
There's no rules. Like, there's no like hoops you have to jump through and hurdles you have to overcome. And I think that's the misperception, is because people have experienced that in the past, right? It's like, if someone's experienced all these trials and tribulations and then they got to where they want to go, and then they're speaking from that place, it's like, well, that doesn't have to be the experience. Like, we can be successful immediately, but make
Wow.
success being how you feel. It's not about, because there's no end point to get to. Like, there's always another thing and another thing and another thing. Be in the joy of your own
Hmm.
expression, and that shit will work itself out.
That's so interesting because some of the people that I've ran into, believe that you absolutely have to suffer. You have to, beg for an apprenticeship. You have to, and it's like part of the process to work your way up to being able to touch a tattoo machine. Like they really believe that. But I guess, like you're saying, if that's what they believe, then that's what they'll go through because there's a ton of
Totally.
other people that haven't had to go through that, to get
It's
where they're
all
at.
it's all belief, and that's why I think sometimes it's good to like not listen to other people's experiences unless they inspire you,
Right.
because of that. Like, I mean, again, different industry, hairstyling, but same
Yeah,
kind of dynamic, right? Like
sure.
apprenticing. And I just went in there like I motherfucking knew I was like the best. Like, and not in a cocky way, not like in comparison to anyone else, just like,
Hmm.
I know who I am. Like, I know, like, I could feel it. And so why would anybody else not believe that?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, that's great to have that kind of a perspective because it is different, it's a little bit different. It's unique. And I think you're right. In the tattoo industry, of course, there are, depending where you live, there are hoops as far as regulatory bodies you have to, jump through. And I'm in hairdressing the same way. Where I live, Oregon is very, very strict with hairdressing and with tattooing. So there are
Mhm.
things you have to do just, to get your license and that kind of thing. But really the rest of it, all the people with all their opinions, that's what it is. It's opinions. It's opinions as to how you have to get here, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, and I mean, like, do that stuff, like, do the licensing stuff, but amplify your passion for what you're doing, and then again, that shit kinda just, like, you just start doing
Yeah.
those things automatically. It's like,
And
even though they might not be the most desirable experience, it's like you kinda just plow through them because you're so passionate about what you're creating and where you're going to.
do you think, like, for instance, people paying their taxes and, doing their books and all that kind of thing, how do you recommend that people get through those kind of tougher things that aren't as much fun and still
Oh,
keep their
fuck, I
joy?
hate doing all of those things. So, I have to, like, really talk myself into a place of, I have to kinda, like, pre-pave doing those activities,
Mhm.
like, amp myself up for it, and even, like, a good way to do that, um, is to kinda tap into who you are on the other side of it all. It's like, "Well, who am I becoming?" Well, I am a person who is building an empire, right? And it's you kinda just yeah, you gotta, like, get the energy going fast enough and passionately enough that you can almost kind of, yeah, like, plow through it, like, hold your vision of where you're going as the dominant place in your mind and the dominant place in your energy, and then it makes some of those tedious, like, physical reality things easier to, yeah, like, easier to go through.
Mhm.
Um, and
Mhm.
often in my experience with those things that I don't like doing, it's like my experience is that it's the anticipation of them that's actually more torturous
Oh,
than
yeah.
actually doing them. It's
That's
like when
so
I
true.
actually sit down and, like, plug in numbers and do things, it's like, "Oh, this isn't actually as torturous as my mind was telling me it was gonna be." Um, and so I draw on past experiences of that, of like,
Yeah.
"Okay, well, when have I done this?" And, like, once I was doing it, I realized that I wasn't gonna die from this, like, my spirit wasn't gonna diminish, right? It's like, okay, I can go into this thing and actually, like, find some joy in it. And then I also, like, I talk to my soul, and so I ask my soul when there's things like I don't really want to do, but I know I have to do to get to where I want to go, like some of those logistic things. It's like I ask my soul, like, I'm like, help me find a way to make this enjoyable. Help me find a way to um yeah, like, help me find a way to experience delight in this experience or in
Mhm.
this thing I need to do, because for me, it's like how I feel is the most important. And so, like, if there's a 3D physical reality thing that needs to get done, it's kind of like, okay, well, how can I still feel joy while I do this thing, even though it
Yeah.
might not be my first choice of something that I want to do.
I love that because also being a shop owner, which is different because not everybody is an actual owner of a studio or shop. There are a lot of things that you have to do that aren't as fun as working with the clients or drawing and that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
keeping keeping the eye on the prize is a
Yeah.
great way to get through some of those things. Yeah, thank you for that. That's really great information. So one more question, unless you have
Hmm.
something else that you want to voluntarily share.
No, I feel complete with what
Feel
we've
pretty
discussed
good?
thus far.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Well, so what personal development book do you think people, I mean, obviously, other than yours, which I think is going to be an amazing book, I just ordered it, um, do you think is absolute essential reading for, say, a new artist or somebody starting their tattoo career?
Mine. And then
Yeah.
second to that is Ask and It Is Given by Abraham Hicks.
Okay.
Esther is by Esther and Jerry Hicks. It's called Ask and It Is Given.
I love that book.
Yeah.
So good. Good advice. Fantastic, Kat. This has been such a great conversation. Um,
Yay.
so you also have a lovely little free gift to offer to our audience. Do you want to tell us what that is?
Yeah, so I'm gifting everyone, it's a master class that I recently taught called Eternal Abundance. And it's pretty fucking cool. I teach some pretty quantum things in there about energy and about um yeah, about awakening to who we are multidimensionally
Mhm.
and how to receive from the universe, how to receive inspiration, how to receive guidance. So it's super powerful for, I mean, application in yeah, for sure, your career, but as well, it will just create a massive shift in perception in how you relate to yourself and how you relate to life, which in and of itself will open up a lot.
Oh, I love that. That sounds amazing. I hope that everyone takes advantage of that. For our listeners, if you want to follow Kat, just look for the speaker's information on the event page, and all the links there will be listed, as well as a place you can click on to get her free gift and get signed up for that awesome class. And also, her book Self Approved is available on Amazon worldwide. So get yourself a copy. I'm going to start reading mine next week. Kat, I'm so grateful you took the time to share with our audience today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, and I hope everyone, yeah, enjoyed this segment and come find me on the social medias. And yeah, if you're
Yeah.
interested to learn more or
Yes, thank
play
you.
in
She's
this realm, yeah.
a beautiful lady. You can't miss her because she's got lots of tattoos.
Yeah, I get asked all the time if I'm a tattoo artist. I'm like, no, I am not.
Oh, thank you so much. I totally appreciate it.
Thank you.
To our listeners, your next interview will be delivered to your inbox. And don't forget, you have access for a full 7 days after each interview is released to listen. I look forward to joining you in our next session. Until then, be feisty, stay kind, and get creative.